Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalam ala Imam al-Anbiya wal Mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Allahumma arna al-haqqa haqqan wa razaqna tiba'ah wa arna al-batila batilan wa razaqna shnaba. Beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to this, another of our sittings. We shall be covering the topic, the human soul. I was speaking to a sister in PM from the UK, and she said it's late for her, the time. But the Americans are happy when it's late because they come home from work to catch the dars. The British are not happy. I told her to drink Red Bull to stay up. She said she doesn't drink Red Bull. All the sisters from the UK are against Red Bull. So am I doing haram to drink Red Bull? Yeah. I'm yet to find one sister from the UK who drinks Red Bull. That means I have to switch to coffee. So the sisters have ganged up against Red Bull. They said it is haram. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we shall be covering the human soul. Now, what is the human soul? The best explanation that was given to us by a scholar for the human soul was the scholar Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah. When he was explaining to us the human soul, he said to us, do you see the flame in the charcoal? That blue flame that you see in the charcoal, that blue flame, the human soul is like that. So this is how he explained the human soul. Now, a modern day scholar will say to you, the human soul is like electricity. Do you see the electricity that makes the computer works? Without electricity, it's impossible for you to switch on your laptop. That's how a modern day scholar will explain the human soul. But a scholar who lived in the time of Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, when there was no electricity, he will say to you, the human soul is like the fire, that blue flame that you see in the charcoal that you use to barbecue your chicken. That blue flame, the human soul is like that. Now, both explanations are accurate. The scholar of yesterday will say it's like the fire that you see in the charcoal. Without the fire in the charcoal is dead, with no heat. The human soul is like that fire that you see in the charcoal. But a modern day scholar who lives in our time will use the example of electricity. So he'll say to you, if you ask him to explain the human soul to you, he'll say to you, do you see that electricity that powers your laptop? Without electricity, it's impossible for your laptop to work. Your laptop needs electricity to work. The human soul is like that electricity. Now, both scholars are accurate with their explanation of the human soul, whether it is a scholar of the past, a scholar from the Salaf al-Salih, or a scholar of today, because both examples explain the human soul adequately. So, people approach the Prophet and asked the Prophet to explain the human soul to them. And Allah revealed the ayah, Surah 17, verse 85. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Surah 17, verse 85. They question you, O Muhammad, about the human soul. Say to them that the human soul is a matter concerning your Lord, and we did not give you knowledge except a little. So, what this ayah is saying is that you will have a little knowledge about the human soul. But to understand the human soul in its totality is not going to be possible, because we didn't give you knowledge except qalila, a little. So what Allah is saying is that you will have some knowledge about the soul, but you will not have complete knowledge about the soul, because the knowledge you have from Allah is only a little. Now, what was created first? Is it the soul or the body? The scholars, they ask themselves this question and they debate the matter. And the correct opinion is that the body was created first and the human soul was created last. That is the correct opinion in regards to this issue. And Allah Ta'ala's Prophet said, Inna ahadukum yujma'u khalquhu fi batni ummihi arba'ina yawman nutfa. Verily, the creation of each one of you was brought together in his mother's womb for 40 days in the form of a seed. I'm quoting to you from hadith number 4 of the 40 hadith. So, you were created in stages. The first 40 days is called a seed. You were just a seed. ثم يكون علقة مثل ذلك, and another 40 days you become a clot. Seed means sperm mixed with ovum. ثم يكون مضغة مثل ذلك, and on the third 40 days you became a lump of flesh, a mudgha. ثم يرسل إليه الملك فينفخ فيه al-rooh ويؤمر بأربع كلمات. And then a malak, an angel, was sent to blow into the womb, the soul, the rooh. So the rooh was blown into the person, the woman, in her womb on the third 40 days. Now, this hadith, which is hadith number 4 of the 40 hadith of Imam An-Nawawi, did you know that some scholars use this hadith to say abortion is halal? Now, which scholars? The Hanbali scholars. The Hanbalis, they believe in abortion. Abortion is halal. Because the soul was not blown into the woman until the third 40 days. So the Hanbalis, they allow you to abort a child before 6 weeks. So the threshold, the cutoff for the abortion is 6 weeks. Now, the Hanbalis are correct when they say abortion is halal, because if a Muslim girl was raped by a kafir, you don't expect her to give birth to such a baby. So, those of you who do not believe in abortion, you are being rigid. Also, incest is rife in some Muslim communities. I don't want to tell you which race of Muslims do incest a lot, because I don't want to offend anybody in the room. But incest is rife among some Muslims. I don't want to tell you which race of Muslims, but incest is rife among them. You don't expect a Muslim girl to give birth to a child if she was impregnated by her brother or her uncle or her father or her grandfather. So the Hanbalis are correct that abortion is halal. Whenever a woman gets pregnant, it is her choice to have the baby or not. She can abort it before 6 weeks. Where is the hadith from the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi? Please bring me the hadith. I'm surprised nobody brought it. It's the hadith number 4 from the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi. And I don't want all of the hadith, I just want the first quarter of the hadith, because it's a long hadith. So, abortion is halal in the case of rape or incest, and in the case of zina. If a Muslim girl commits zina, she got weak and commits zina. Verily, the creation of. Okay, bring me more of the hadith. Bring me about 5 sentences of the hadith. A Muslim girl got weak and she commits zina, or she got married to a man and he turned out to be a Shia, a Qadiani, an Ahmadiyya, a Goofy Sufi, and she wants out. She wants to leave the marriage, and she found out she's pregnant. She is allowed to abort the child if she wants. So a Muslim woman has a choice to choose to have a baby or not under these circumstances. She got married to a kafir and she did not know he was a kafir. She was raped or it was incest. And if she became weak and committed zina and she doesn't want to bring a bastard child into the world, she can abort the child. So these are the 4 cases under which a woman is allowed to abort the child. And the reason why it's better to abort the bastard child is because the bastard child is a child of the Satan. Now, where is the ayah? Because statements of this magnitude, I need to bring the hujjah. Because I'm saying things that are very frightening. That the bastard child is a child of the Satan. A statement of this magnitude, we need to bring the hujjah. The evidence is Surah 17, verse 64. Surah 17, verse 64. This is the ayah to tell you that the bastard child is a child of the Satan, and the first right that your child has over you is for the child to be legitimate. The first right your child has over you is not to give the child a Muslim name. That is the second right. And to circumcise the child, that's the third right if it's a boy child. The first right is not to give the child a Muslim name. The first right the child has over you is for the child to be legitimate. Because you are not allowed to bastardize your child, because that child won't be able to lead the salah in the masjid. That child won't be able to lead the salah in the masjid. So this is the first right that your child has over you. So if a Muslim girl gets weak and got pregnant from zina, it is her right to abort the child because abortion is halal. Yes, so this is the ayah. Make assault on them with your cavalry and your infantry. Mutually share with them wealth and children, by tempting them to earn money by illegal ways, for example, usury, riba, or by committing illegal sexual intercourse, and make promise to them, but Satan promises them nothing but deceit. Because of this ayah, Surah 17, verse 64, all the scholars of Islam say that the bastard child is a child of the Satan. Therefore, the first right that your child has over you is for the child to be legitimate. So if a Muslim girl got weak and commit zina, and she falls pregnant, and she wants to abort the child, nobody is allowed to force her to give birth to that child because abortion is halal. Now, what is the evidence used by the scholars to say abortion is halal? The Hanbali scholars, that is. They use hadith number 4 from the 40 hadith of Imam An-Nawawi, in which the Prophet said the soul, the rooh, is blown into the child after 120 days. So, if she aborted the child in the first 6 weeks, you cannot say she killed someone. She didn't kill anyone because when she aborted the child, the ruh wasn't blown into the child. However, when the soul is blown into the child, she is not allowed to abort the child under any given circumstances. Not even if she was raped. She is not allowed to abort the child after the soul was blown into the child, because then it becomes murder. So, no 120 days because the soul is not blown into the child. So, then you committed the crime of murder. I hope that is clear. So, the correct opinion is that the soul was created last and the body was created first. The human soul is not eternal. This is the Aqidah of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. They claim that the human soul is eternal. The only thing which is eternal is Allah Himself. Only Allah Himself is eternal. The human soul is not eternal. Now, the Holy Quran, is it eternal? The Holy Quran is eternal in heaven, not on earth. The Holy Quran is not eternal on earth, only in heaven. Because the Quran is ilm Allah, the knowledge of Allah. So it is eternal in heaven, not on earth. Because when all the Muslims die, the Holy Quran will fall into oblivion. The kuffar will make sure that they burn every single copy of the Quran. They will make sure that the Quran is no longer on the face of the earth. On September 11, 2010, don't you see they want to burn the Quran? And they did burn the Quran. So the Quran is only eternal in heaven, not on earth. And only Allah Ta'ala Himself is eternal. So the human soul is not eternal. That is not our aqidah. The human soul was created. The evidence is Surah 76, verse 1. Allah Ta'ala said, هَلْ أَتَى عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ حِينٌ مِنَ الدَّرْ لَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْئًا مَذْكُورًا. Won't man reflect? Won't man reflect at some time in life? He was not made mention of. He was not in existence. He wasn't even in existence. Now Allah Ta'ala is above the heavens. Somebody whisper me, heaven or paradise? This person has knowledge of Aqidah because he knows that there's a difference between heaven and paradise. So for him to whisper me, heaven or paradise, it means he has knowledge of Aqidah. Many people don't realize that there is a vast difference between heaven and paradise. The Holy Quran is eternal above the seven heavens. Not in heaven, above the seven heavens, because Allah Ta'ala is above the seven heavens. So, shukran for the reminder. There's a difference between heaven and paradise, and there's a difference between a prophet and a messenger. There's a difference between destiny and predestination. There's a difference between istighfar and tawbah. Is that clear? There's a difference between istighfar and tawbah. There's a difference between a nabi and a rasul. The scholars of Aqidah will tell you that there's a difference between all these things. There's a difference between the arsh and the kursi. Even though you use them interchangeably, there is a vast difference between these things. So for a person to whisper me to explain paradise and heaven, that means the person has knowledge of Aqidah. The Quran is eternal above the seven heavens because Allah Ta'ala is above the seven heavens. There's a difference between istighfar and tawbah, and there's a difference between the arsh and the kursi. And there's a difference between the nabi and the rasul. And there's a difference between destiny and predestination. Isn't that so? There is a vast difference between destiny and predestination. Predestination cannot be changed, like the coming of Jesus and the coming of the Gog and Magog, and the rising of the sun from the west instead of the east. So predestination cannot be changed. But destiny can be changed. The Prophet said, your dua changes destiny. Nothing changes your destiny except your dua. So you are using these words every day interchangeably, but there is a vast difference between these words, and there's a difference between heaven and paradise. There is a difference between heaven and paradise. Adam was in heaven, not paradise. When you enter paradise, you won't be thrown out. And no one can enter paradise before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there's a difference between heaven and paradise. Adam was in heaven, not paradise. Okay, shukran for the hadith. Nothing can change the qadr except your dua. Found in Ahmed and At-Tirmidhi. Nothing changes your qadr except your dua. So maybe it was written for you to lose your two legs in a car accident. Traveling from London to Manchester. Traveling from New York to Connecticut or Washington, D.C. But because you made a dua before you left home, Allah used your dua to wipe out the calamity which was written to befall you. Nothing changes your qadr except your daily dua. And because of that, Allah Ta'ala said in the Holy Quran, يَمْحُ Allah ma yasha wa yuthbit wa indahu al-Kitab. Surah 13 verse 39. Allah wipes out what He wants to wipe out, and He caused to remain what He wants to remain. With Him is Kitab, the mother of the book. Surah 13 verse 39. يَمْحُ Allah ma yasha wa yuthbit wa indahu Kitab. Allah wipes out what He wants to wipe out, and He caused to remain what He wants to remain. With Him is the mother of the book. So this ayah tells you that your qadr, your destiny can be changed. What changes your destiny? Your daily dua. So do not give up hope and think that you are doomed, because your dua can change your destiny. The soul was created, and I've brought you the evidence. Surah 76 verse 1. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. The other evidence used by the scholars to prove that the human soul was created, Surah 39 verse 62. والله خالق كل شيء وهو على كل شيء وكيل. And Allah Ta'ala is the creator of everything, and He is the wakil, the trustee, the protector of everything. Surah 39 verse 62. Allah Ta'ala is the creator of all things, and He is the wakil, the trustee, the guardian over all things. The person taking notes, the next chapter is the 5 connections between the body and soul. The 5 connections between the body and soul. The person taking notes, our next chapter is the 5 connections between the body and soul. Between the body and soul, there are 5 connections. The first connection is when you were in your mother's womb. That is the very first connection. When you were in your mother's womb. So, when you were in your mother's womb, your mother had to eat for you, drink for you, and breathe oxygen on your behalf. You were not independent. You were 100% dependent on your mother. Now, when you are in your mother's womb, if your mother listens to a lot of Quran, you will be a wonderful child, a pious child. But if your mother smokes cigarettes and listens to music and drink alcohol, you will be an evil child when you are born. And if your mother was taking crack cocaine, you will be born addicted to crack cocaine. So when you are in your mother's womb, it is incumbent on your mother to look after you in the womb, spiritually and physically and emotionally. And when your wife is pregnant, that is when you are supposed to show her love the most, because if she is depressed, she will have a miscarriage. The child will pick it up, her depression, and cause her to have a miscarriage. So when your wife is pregnant, she is in need of tender loving care more than any other time. And how you treat the baby will be born with that type of behavior, that type of disposition, that type of personality. So women who are deep into spirituality, read a lot of Quran when they are pregnant and do dhikr and establish their salah, the child will be born as a righteous child. And women who dabbled in haram activities when they were pregnant, the child will be born as an evil child with an evil disposition. So it is incumbent upon you to look after your child when the child is inside your womb. The second connection between the body and soul is when you're born, your mother gave birth to you, and the umbilical cord is now cut. And you are able to breathe for yourself, and drink for yourself, eat for yourself. You have a measurable amount of independence from your mother. So, this is the second connection between the body and soul, when the umbilical cord is cut. The third connection between the body and soul, and when the umbilical cord is cut and the baby is born, the baby cries. I ask my sheikhs why the baby cry, and they say it's a touch of the shaitan. And another sheikh told me, he was from Azhar University in Egypt, he said that the baby no longer feels secure in the mother's womb. The baby is born into the dunya. In the mother's womb, it was neither too hot nor too cold, so the baby was comfortable. But the baby is not born into the dunya, the baby is taken out of its comfort zone. The womb of the mother is its comfort zone, and no one likes to leave its comfort zone. So the baby cries because of the harshness of the dunya. Some people give birth under difficult circumstances. I've seen a woman in Mozambique, she gave birth in a tree. Water was underneath her, and she gave birth in a tree. A woman in Mozambique. Her story touched the world. The Americans gave her asylum to come and live in America, gave her citizenship, because her story touched the world. She gave birth in a tree. So, not everyone is fortunate to be born in a hospital which is well equipped with state-of-the-art equipment. If there is a breach, there are doctors and equipment there to sort out the breach. Breach means the feet of the baby is coming out first. In third world countries, they don't have proper care for women who are pregnant before the birth or after the birth. So many babies are born under harsh circumstances. And many women die in childbirth in poor countries because they don't have proper doctors and equipment to give proper care for these women. Whether it is antenatal treatment or postnatal treatment, they don't have proper care for these women. Why do you think many sisters are afraid to make hijrah? Because they are saying, what if I get pregnant? Who's going to deliver the baby? In your country, there's hardly any hospitals and no doctors. Sisters don't want to leave Europe and America to make hijrah because it is their comfort zone. And when they go for holidays into poor countries and they see the poverty, they become frightened and they say, I can't make hijrah. I've spoken to many sisters in this room, and they're afraid to make hijrah to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, because the UK is their comfort zone. And they get health care for free in these countries. Free health care in the UK. What if I make hijrah? How am I going to get health care? This is the questions they put to me when I discuss hijrah with them. The UK is their comfort zone. They are getting the best hospitals and the best doctors, the best equipment. What if I make hijrah and die in childbirth? Thousands of women die in childbirth every year because they don't have proper equipment in the hospitals or properly trained doctors to look after women. The third connection between the body and soul is when you are sleeping. Sleep is the twin sister of death. And Allah said in Surah 6 verse 60, هو الذي يتوفاكم بالليل ويعلم ما جرحتم بالنهار. He it is that takes your souls by night, and He has full knowledge of what you are doing in the daytime. Surah 6 verse 60. So Allah Ta'ala used the word mutawaffi in this ayah, meaning when you are sleeping, it is the twin sister of death. هو الذي يتوفاكم بالليل وَيَعْلَمْ مَا جَرَحْتُمْ بِالنَّهَارِ. Where is the ayah? Okay, it is He who takes your souls by night when you are asleep and has knowledge of what you are doing in the daytime. ثُمَّ يَبْعَثُكُمْ فِيهِ. Then He raises you up again, that a term appointed, your life period, be fulfilled. So when you are sleeping, it's the twin sister of death. There is no guarantee that you'll wake up. Some people die in their sleep. If you sleep on your belly, you may die in your sleep. Cot death was pandemic in the UK, and they did a research, and they said the reason why the babies die in their sleep is because the mothers put them to sleep on their stomach. The researchers in the UK said if you put the baby to sleep on its back like the Prophet Muhammad told you, you won't have cot death. Listen to what the researchers said. If you put the baby to sleep on its back the way the Prophet Muhammad told you, your babies won't suffer cot death. But if you put the babies to sleep on their stomach, like the Prophet Muhammad told you that you are not supposed to sleep on your stomach, then your babies will suffer cot death. Can you believe it? The kuffar in the UK, they did a research about cot death, and they said if you obey Muhammad and put the babies to sleep on their back, they won't die in the crib. But if you put them on your stomach and disobey Muhammad, then they will suffer cot death. Kafir researchers. Can you believe it? The Kafir researchers. They arrive at the conclusion. If you don't want your babies to die from cot death, you need to obey Muhammad. And these researchers were not even Muslim researchers. Kafir researchers from Oxford and Cambridge. They are the ones who arrive at that conclusion. Can you believe it? I was on tour of Botswana, and they were advertising on the TV and the radio, the billboards, for men to come forward and be circumcised. They said AIDS is pandemic in our country, and the reason why AIDS is pandemic is because the men are not circumcised. But if you become circumcised like Muhammad commanded you to be circumcised, then you won't catch AIDS the way you are catching AIDS. They said, come forward, we will circumcise you for free. Now these kuffar, these Christians, they listen to Paul. Paul was a Jew, his name was Saul, and then he turned it to Paul. Because Jews, they like to change their name so that you don't know that they are Jews. And then he said, I was on the road to Damascus and I got a calling to become a Christian. I'm a changed man on the road to Damascus. He came into Christianity to corrupt Christianity and to change the teachings of Jesus. He is the one who told the Christians you don't need to be circumcised. Now they abandoned the teachings of Jesus and followed Paul. So most Christian men are not circumcised. So for them to catch AIDS is very, very easy. A man who is not circumcised is no better than a dog. He is not clean. And they give women cervical cancer because they are not clean. And the Rasul said 5 things is Sunan al-Fitra: to grow the beard and clip the mustache, to shave your private parts and to shave the hair under your armpit, to clip your fingernails and toenails, and to be circumcised. These 5 things are of al-Fitra. To be circumcised as a man, to shave the hair under your armpit and your private parts, every 40 days that is, to clip your fingernails and your toenails, to grow the beard and clip the mustache, and circumcision. These are the 5 things which is from al-Fitra, which you have to do as a Muslim. The 4th connection between the body and soul, to be circumcised, to shave the hair under your armpit, your private parts, to cut the nails, finger and toenails, to grow the beard and clip the mustache. To grow the beard and... Can somebody bring me the hadith and clip the mustache? Did I leave something out? Yes. In some hadith, to rub between your toes when you make wudu. In some hadith, to scrub between your toes when you perform wudu. The fourth connection between the body and soul is when you are inside the grave, the Barzakh. The life of the grave is called the Barzakh. And you are not allowed to mix up the life of the grave with the life of the dunya. This is what the Sufis do and the Shiites. They believe that the life of the grave is exactly similar to the life of the dunya. And they have the audacity to quote Surah 3:169 as their evidence. Did you know that? They claim there is no difference between the life of the Barzakh and the life of the dunya. The Shiites and the Sufis. The Brahmins as well. And the reason why they make that claim is because they are grave worshippers. So, because they are grave worshippers, they insist that the life of the Barzakh and the life of the dunya is exactly the same. And they have the audacity to quote Surah 3:169, where Allah said, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Do not entertain the idea that those who were slain on the battlefield, that they are dead. Nay, they are alive, gaining sustenance from their Lord. So they said, this is our evidence that the life of the Barzakh and the life of the dunya is exactly the same. So when we pray to the Prophet Muhammad inside the grave and begging for things, we are not mushrikeen. We are not pagans. We are not kuffar. Because Allah said that those who are slain on the battlefield, they are not dead, they are alive. And the Prophet Muhammad, he died a shaheed. He, Muhammad, died a shaheed because he was poisoned by a Jewish woman. So because Muhammad died a shaheed, and Muhammad is still alive in the grave, and the earth cannot consume the bodies of the prophets and the shuhada, when we pray to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the grave, we are not mushrikeen because Muhammad is still alive. Now, this is the argument of the grave worshippers. Have you found the hadith? 5 things belong to al-fitra. Okay, let me see what you have. There are 5 things from the fitra: using metal blade for removing the pubic hair, circumcision, trimming the mustache, plucking the armpit, and cutting the nails. Okay, shukran for the hadith. Yeah, this is the hadith I learned from the Shaykhs, that 5 things is of al-fitra. Whenever you compare the life of the Barzakh to the life of the dunya and assume that both lives are exactly the same, you become a deviant. This is where the grave worshippers go astray, and the shaitan cause them to go astray. Ahmad ibn Hanbal said most mistakes are made with qiyas. Qiyas means analogy. They compare the life of the dunya to the life of the Barzakh, and they assume that both lives are the same. And what did they do? They worship the graves. What a wrong qiyas they have made. What an analogy. When the Rasul fought at the Battle of Badr, and the kuffar were killed, and he stood over their dead bodies and called out their names: Utbah, Shayba, Umayyah, Abu Jahl. Do you find the promise of Allah to be true? Verily, I find the promise of Allah to be true. Umar said, O Messenger of Allah, you are speaking to dead bodies, they can hear. The Prophet said, they can hear me just like you, except that they can't answer me. So, when you are dead, you are no longer considered to be a person of the dunya. You are now a person of the Barzakh. And the dead man is able to hear, and the dead man is able to feel. But the Prophet told Omar at the Battle of Badr, the dead, they can hear me, but they can't answer me. So if the Rasul told Omar, the dead can hear me, but they can't answer me, who told you you're allowed to go to the graves of the dead and pray to the inhabitants of the graves and beg them for things? The dead man is incapacitated. He is impaired. Everything about the dead man is impaired. He can feel and he can hear the dead. Because the Rasul said, the dead man, when you lower him in the grave, he is able to hear the footsteps of all his family and friends who attended his janazah. This is a hadith of the Prophet. When you lower the man in the grave, he is able to hear the footsteps of all his family and friends who attended the janazah. So there is no doubt that the dead man can hear. But the Prophet said he can hear, except that he can answer. Therefore, those who compare the life of the Barzakh, which is the life of the grave, to the life of the dunya and assume that both lives are the same, they are deviants. They have gone astray. And this is the aqidah of the grave worshippers, because they don't want to admit that the Barzakh is different from the dunya. And they have the audacity to say that Muhammad is still alive in the grave. Did you know that? They have the audacity to say Muhammad is still alive in the grave. So, if Muhammad is still alive in the grave, what do you do with the ayah? Surah 39, verse 30. Innaka mayyitun wa innahum mayyitun. You, Muhammad, shall die, and all your Sahabas will die. Surah 39, verse 30. Allah informed the Prophet, Innaka mayyitun wa innahum mayyitun. You, Muhammad, shall die, and all your companions shall die with you. So if Allah is telling us in Surah 39, verse 30 that you, Muhammad, shall die, and all your companions shall die with you, what makes you think that we should believe you that Muhammad is alive in the grave? And are you trying to say that Abu Bakr buried the Prophet knowing that the Prophet is still alive? Abu Bakr Siddiq buried the Prophet knowing that the Prophet is still alive? Only the pagan Arabs bury people when they know that they are still alive. The pagan Arabs, that's their practice. To bury people knowing that they are still alive. Abu Bakr Siddiq wasn't a pagan Arab to bury people when they are still alive. What do you mean Muhammad is alive in the grave? We know that there is life in the grave. Because when you are inside the grave, Munkar and Nakir will ask you, who is your Lord, who is your Prophet, and what is your religion? So there is life in the grave for everybody. Whether you are a Muslim or a Kafir, there is life in the grave for you. Because there is punishment in the grave. Allah said, Alhaakum at-takathur hatta zurtum al-maqabir. Rivalry between yourself, mutual rivalry, to pile up the pomp and glitter of the dunya. Worldly encumbrances. They distract you from your deen. Until you visit the grave, then you will come to know. The Sahaba said, we used to doubt the punishment of the grave. We used to doubt the punishment of the grave. But when Allah revealed the surah, Alhaakum at-takathur, not a single Sahaba doubted the punishment of the grave. Alhaakum at-takathur hatta zurtumul maqabir. Rivalry between yourself to pile up the dunya. Chasing after the dunya. It takes you away from your deen. Until you visit the grave, then you shall come to know. Until you visit the grave, then you shall come to know. This is the surah that tells us that there is punishment in the grave. So if there is punishment in the grave, that means there is life in the grave. But the life in the grave should not be compared to the life of the dunya, because there are two different lives. Those who claim that the life in the grave is exactly similar to the life of the dunya, there are the Goofy Sufis, the Shady Shiites, and the Barelwis. This is why they are grave worshippers, because they refuse to admit that the two lives are different. They insist that they are the same lives. Muhammad is alive in the grave. So when we go to Medina every year to pray to Muhammad during the Hajj season and begging for things, we are not mushrikeen, because Muhammad is alive in the grave. And the evidence is Surah 3, 169. Our evidence to prove that Muhammad is alive in the grave is Surah 3, 169. Now look at these hypocrites. They are taking Surah 3, 169 literally. What do they do? They take Surah 3, 169 literally. These Sufis. Yet, when we say Allah is above the arsh, they say, don't take the Quran literally. Don't take the Quran literally. What a hypocrite. So, if you know that we are not supposed to take the Quran literally, why then did you take Surah 3, 169 literally? What a hypocrite. This person is a hypocrite and a waste of space. When we quote Surah 20 verse 5, Surah 20 verse 5, Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa. They say to us, don't take the Quran literally. Don't take the Quran literally. Ittaqillah, don't take the Quran literally. That's what they say to us. Surah 20 verse 5, Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa. Allah is not on any arsh, because Allah cannot be confined to a time and place. Allah is everywhere. When you say Allah is on the arsh, you are seeking to limit Allah. Who are you to limit Allah? Allah cannot be confined to a place. So don't take the Quran literally. So if you know that we are not supposed to take the Quran literally, why then did you take Surah 3, 169 literally and preach that Muhammad is alive in the grave, and then you pray to Muhammad? What a hypocrite you are. You preach one thing and practice something else. The Muslims will never forgive you if you preach one thing and practice something else, because the Muslims don't like hypocrisy. You can't preach one thing and do something else. They won't forgive you for your hypocrisy. So you take the Quran literally when it suits you, and when it doesn't suit you, you say it is metaphorical. This verse is literal and that verse is metaphorical. It's not literal, it's metaphorical. So you keep chopping and changing. You have no set standard. The fifth connection between the body and soul is when you are in Jannah. And this is the most perfect connection between the body and soul. The connection between the body and soul in the dunya is not perfect, because you suffer pain and sorrow, disappointments. You become old. You become so old, some of your teeth drop out, wrinkles and white hair. The connection between the body and soul in the dunya is not perfect. It's imperfect. Because you suffer old age. Some of you become impotent to the extent your wife dump you. Impotent, your wife dump you. You become weak. You have white hair. And even in the time of the Rasul, not the Rasul, when Omar was the Caliph, a woman went to Omar to complain about her husband, impotence. And Omar said to the woman, you benefited from him when he was young. He worked hard and fed you and gave you everything when he was young. Now that he's old, you want to dump him? And Omar was upset with the woman. Because a woman is never finished. A woman is never finished. In Jamaica, even 60-year-old women have needs. It's men who are finished, not a woman. Even in Jamaica, 60-year-old women have needs, all of them. It's the men who are finished, not women. So your connection between the body and soul in the dunya is imperfect. You have become old. You have white hair. You become so old, your teeth drop out. You become so old, you become senile. When you have breakfast, 8 a.m. in the mornings, you can't remember what you had for breakfast. By 12 midday, you suffer senility. That is the connection between the body and soul in the dunya. In the hereafter, in the paradise, you don't have old people in paradise. You don't become old. The Prophet told an old woman, there is no old people in paradise. The woman went away sad. The Prophet called her back and said, now you are old. When you go to paradise, you will be young and you will be forever young. Then she went away happy. Why in paradise you will be forever young? Because the connection between the body and soul in paradise is not like the connection between the body and soul in the dunya. Some of you are only 35 years old, yet you already have white hair. I don't know how you can have white hair at such a young age. I'm 48 and I don't have one white hair. You are only 35, yet you have white hair. You have wrinkles. Some of you are 50, you are impotent. Some of you, your teeth drop out. Because the connection between the body and soul in the dunya is an imperfect connection. The most perfect connection between the body and soul is when you enter the paradise. In paradise, there is no urination, there is no defecation, there is no menstruation, and there is no bleeding after childbirth. That is paradise. There is no old people in paradise. You will be 33 years old. You and your wife will be 33 years old, and you will be forever young. What a connection between the body and soul. And this is the most perfect of connections between your body and soul. The soul can see, the soul can hear, the soul can travel, the soul can speak. Did you know that? The soul can see, the soul can hear, the soul can travel. The soul can speak, the soul can respond. The soul is a separate living entity living inside your body. Have you heard about a state within a state? You are living in the USA and you establish a community. You are living in Europe and you establish a community. A righteous community where there is no fornication, adultery, and alcohol. Because you buy a piece of land and you only allow Muslims to live on that piece of land, 50-acre land. You establish a state within a state. You don't allow alcohol on the premises or prostitution. This soul inside your body is like a state within a state. Because your soul can see, your soul can hear, your soul can speak, your soul can travel. That is the human soul. It is the mother of all mysteries. So, because the soul is able to hear and respond, Allah will say to the soul on the day of resurrection, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna. ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. Surah 89, 27 to 30. O you peaceful soul, you tranquil soul, return to your Lord. You are pleased with your Lord and your Lord is pleased with you. Mardiya. فادخلي في عبادي, enter into my servant. وَدُخُلِي جَنَّتِي, and enter into my paradise. Why Allah will command the soul on Judgment Day? Because the soul is a separate entity which is able to see, hear, speak, and even respond to the commandment of its Lord. Where is the ayah? The person taking notes, the next chapter is the soul's journey after death. The soul's journey after death. Surah 89, 27 to 30. Where is the ayah? Okay, let's continue. We can't wait for the ayah. On the authority of Bara ibn Azim, could you share your Quranic verses with somebody else? Because I don't like people taking long to bring the ayah. The soul's journey after death. We went out to perform. Please do not take long to bring the ayah. The next chapter, the soul's journey after death. We went out to perform janazah with the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The man who died was from the Ansars. We arrived and the inner chamber of the grave was not yet prepared. The Messenger of Allah sat facing the Qibla. We sat around him and we were so quiet in the midst of the Prophet. It's like birds were sitting on our heads. Now, why the Sahaba said when we were sitting with the Prophet, it's like birds were sitting on our heads? That's the respect they had for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The respect, the love and respect they had for the Prophet. When they were in his midst, they were so respectful to the Prophet, they were so still, it's like birds were sitting on their heads. He had a stick in his hand which he used to strike the ground, and he was looking towards the heavens, then to the earth. Finally, he said, "Seek refuge in Allah from the punishment of the grave." Then he said, "O Allah, I seek refuge in you from the punishment of the grave." He repeated this 3 times. Then he elaborated. Then the Prophet elaborated. I hope you can hear me. There is a heavy downpour in Jamaica at the moment. There's a heavy downpour. I hope you can hear me. Then the Prophet elaborated. Verily, when the believing servant is leaving this world and entering the next world, angels descend with bright faces, carrying with them sheets and scents from paradise. They sit before him for his eyes to see them. Verily, when the believing servant is leaving this world and entering the next, the angels from the heavens descend to him, their faces white with brightness like the sun, and carrying with them beryl sheets and scents from paradise. They sit before him at a distance as far as the eye can see. Okay, shukran. Yes, this is very good notes. And they will say to him, "O you contented soul, Ya ayyatuha nafsul mutma'inna, come out to your Lord's forgiveness and pleasure." Come out to your Lord's forgiveness and pleasure. This is clear evidence that the soul can hear, respond, and see. Thereupon the soul comes out of his body with ease, like the water pouring out of the water skin. This is the meaning of the ayah, وَالنَّازِيَاتِ غَرْقًا وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا, Surah 79, 1-2. Allah said, "I swear by the angels that pulls the soul of the kuffar out of their bosom viciously." Then Allah said, I swear by the angels who take out the soul of the believers from their bosom with peace and tranquility. وَالنَّازِيَاتِ غَرْقًا وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا. The Rasul said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the angels rips the soul of the kafirs out, it ruptures all the arteries, the veins. It's like the similitude of a cat that plays with the cushion and you can see the fluff of the cloth on the cushion. I repeat, the Rasul said, when the angels rip, the angel of death rips the soul of the kafir out, it ruptures all his veins, his arteries. The similitude is like the cat playing with the cushion, and you can see the fluff of the cloth protruding. This is the similitude of the angel of death pulling the soul of the kafir from his stomach as it ruptures all of his veins and arteries. The question that is asked by many people is a very important question that we ask. If there's only one angel of death, Malak al-Maut, there's only one angel of death, why is it that in Surah 79 Allah said, وَالنَّازِيَاتِ غَرْقًا وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا? I swear by the angels who pulled the souls of the kuffar out violently, with great violence. And then Allah said, I swear by the angels that take the soul of the believers out with peace and tranquility. Why did Allah use the word angels? Because the angel of death is only one person. This is the million-dollar question. The answer to the question is, one angel takes the soul out, Malak al-Maut, and then he passes it on to a group of angels who will take the soul and wrap it up into a sweet smelling cloth to take it up to the heavens to show to Allah Ta'ala. This is why Allah used the plural when He was describing the death of a person. Allah said angels, not one angel. Angels. Because one angel takes the soul out, then he passes it on to the other angels who are there, who will wrap the soul up in a sweet smelling cloth, and these angels will transmit the soul to Allah to show the soul to Allah Ta'ala, who is above the seven heavens. There is a famous hadith found in Bukhari in which the angel of death approached Musa to snatch his soul, and Musa punched the angel of death in his eye. He didn't want his soul to be taken. There are three opinions. Please bring me the hadith. It's in Bukhari. I think it's in Muslim as well. It's in Muslim. Okay, it's a long hadith. I only want the piece which is relevant to the topic. Authentic Tawheed 9, you can bring the hadith and just bring the piece which is relevant to the topic. Please stop where it says, spoiling one of his eyes. Spoiling one of his eyes. Okay. There are three opinions among the scholars of Aqidah why he punched the angel of death in his eye. And please be informed that the Mu'tazilites, they reject the hadith. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the angel of death was sent to Musa, and when he went to him, Musa slapped him severely, spoiling one of his eyes. Yes. There are 3 opinions among the scholars of Aqidah why he punched the angel of death in his eye and knocked it out. He gouged the eye out. Let me remind you that the Mu'tazilites, they reject the hadith. We say to them, the hadith is in Bukhari. They said, I don't give a damn if the hadith is in Bukhari, I don't accept the hadith. How can a man punch the angel of death and knock out his eye? This is the argument of the Mu'tazilites. They said, my aql doesn't accept the hadith. The first opinion, Musa feared death. He didn't want to die. His natural instinct got the better of him. This is the first opinion why he punched the angel of death and knocked out his eye. He feared death. The second opinion, he wanted his grave to remain a top secret. He didn't want people to know where his grave was, where his grave would be. Maybe Musa knew that the Brelus would come. That's why he didn't want his grave to be known. He knew that the grave worshippers would come, the Brelus. The third opinion, he wanted to die on a holy piece of land, and the place where the angel of death wanted to take his soul was an ordinary piece of land. The most accurate opinion from these 3 opinions is the last opinion, and this is the opinion of Imam Bukhari. That he wanted to die on a holy piece of land. And the land that the angel wanted to take his soul was an ordinary piece of land. This is the most accurate opinion. The reason why this is the most accurate opinion, Imam Bukhari chose this opinion. He wanted his grave to be at a holy land. If you die in Mecca, you'll go to Jannah. If you die on a Friday, you'll go to Jannah. The Kuffar said they kill Anwar al-Awlaki on a Friday. If you die on a Friday, you go to Jannah, and if you die in Mecca, you go to Jannah. The Rasul ﷺ continued, the soul of a believer which was taken out and wrapped in a soft piece of cloth emits a very sweet smell like musk one can find on earth. The Rasul continued, the soul of this believer which was taken out and wrapped in a soft piece of cloth emits a very sweet smell like musk, the sweetest smell you can smell in the dunya. Then they ascended the heavens, and every time they passed by a host of angels in the heavens, they cry out, who is this wonderful soul, this marvelous soul? Addressing him by the best names he was known by in the dunya. What a tranquil soul. They then show the soul to Allah, and Allah will say, write this soul down in Illiyin. Illiyin is a book which good souls are kept as a record. Also, Illiyin is used, the name Illiyun is used to label a place in paradise where good souls are kept in the 7th heavens. Place the soul in Illiyin, the personal record is then placed in Illiyin. Allah then said to the angels, return this soul to his body in the grave. this man is now able to hear the footsteps of all those who attended his janazah. All his families and friends who attended his janazah, he's able to hear their footsteps because his soul is now returned to his body in the grave. The two angels, Munkar and Nakir, will now ask him 3 questions. Who is your Lord? Who is your Prophet? And what is your religion? And this is the meaning of the ayah. Surah 14 verse 27. وَيُثْبِتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ. Allah will give firmness to those who believe to respond to the angels inside the grave. Qawl al-thabit, a firm word. Surah 14 verse 27. So he used to tell his companions to ask for the personal tathbeet, firmness, because now he's been interrogated by the two angels Munkar and Nakir, and they are severe in their interrogation. So when the body of the dead person is lowered in the grave, the Prophet used to say to his companions, beg Allah to give him firmness, because the two angels are interrogating him, questioning him, and they are severe in their interrogation. When the believing servant answers properly, a voice from heaven will say, my servant has told the truth, so clothe him with the clothing of paradise. Spread for him the grave, open for him a window of paradise. So the person in the grave is now engulfed with a sweet fragrance of paradise. His grave expands for him as far as the eye can see. Then there comes to him a young man in the best clothing and the best of countenance, the most handsome face. His smell is sweet. He, the young man, will say to the deceased, rejoice with Allah's pleasure. I hope I'm not going too fast for. By the way, this speech was prepared from the book Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, book on the Rooh. The scholar with the most authority in speaking on this topic is Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah. Then there comes to him a young man in the best of clothing and the best of countenance. His smell is sweet. He, the young man, will say to the deceased, rejoice with Allah's pleasure, whose joy never ends, and this is the day you were promised. The deceased then will say, who are you? Because your face bears glad tidings. He will say, I represent your good deeds you used to perform in the dunya. I always known you to be a person who was quick to obey Allah and slow to disobey Allah. Then a door of paradise is open and a door of hell is open. It will be said to him, look at the hellfire. Had you disobeyed Allah, this would have been your abode. But because you were obedient to Allah, this will be your abode, the paradise. When the soul sees what has been prepared for him in paradise, he will say, O Allah, hasten the hour so that I may rejoin my family and wealth. Aqbil as-sa'a. It will then be said to it, rest in peace and tranquility. This is the soul's journey I have explained to you, and this is the soul of the believer. When the disbelieving servant is leaving the world, I'm taking you on another journey. When the disbelieving servant is leaving the world, and enter the next world, this is the soul of the kafir. Angels with dark faces, with coarse piece of cloth, will appear and sit where his eyes can see them. They will say, O you sinful soul, come out to the displeasure of your Lord. But the soul doesn't want to deliver itself up. The soul will try to refuse to deliver itself up to the angels. When they said, O you sinful soul, come out to the displeasure of your Lord. So, the angel of death violently pulls out the soul like the threading of the cloth that protrudes, rupturing every vein and every artery in that body. The angels wrap it up in a coarse piece of cloth, emitting from it the foulest of smell, the stinkest of smell, the most obnoxious smell, foul smell. When they pass by a host of angels, they cry out, Who is this soul? Who is this foul soul? This wretched soul? Then when they arrive at the lowest heaven, they will request that the heaven be opened for them, but the request will be denied. The Rasul ﷺ then recited Surah 7 verse 40. Surah 7 verse 40. إن الذين كذبوا بآياتنا واستكبروا عنها لا تفتح لهم أبواب السماء ولا يدخلون الجنة حتى يلج الجمل في سم الخياط وكذلك نجزي المجرمين. Those who reject faith in our ayahs, our signs, and they were proud and arrogant, they arrogantly turn away from our signs, the doors of paradise will never be open for them. The door of heaven won't be open for them. And they will never enter heaven until the camel enters the eye of a needle. Such we give recompense for the criminals. Surah 7 verse 40. Then Allah will say, place this soul in the record of Sijjeen. Okay, shukran for the ayah. Verily, those who belie our ayahs, proofs, evidences, and treat them with arrogance, for them the gates of heaven will not be open, and they will not enter paradise until the camel goes through the eye of the needle, which is impossible. Thus do we recompense the mujrimeen. So, this is the ayah the Prophet Muhammad read to the Sahabas when he told them that requests will be made for the soul to enter heaven, but the request will be denied. And Allah will say, write that soul down in Sijjeen. Sijjeen is a record in which the souls of the kuffar are kept. Sijjeen is also a place in hell underneath the seventh earth where the soul of the kafirs are kept. So if you are asked the question, where is hell? Listen carefully. If you are asked the question, where is hell? Hell is underneath the seventh earth, the opposite of paradise, underneath the seventh earth. And that is where Sijjin is also, a place where the souls of the kuffar are kept. Then he said, return the soul to the earth. Allah will say, return the soul to the earth, because I promised man to return him to the earth after creating him from the earth. So this soul is thrown down violently to his body in the earth. He is now able to hear the footsteps of all those who attended his janazah from his family and friends. Munkar and Nakir will now interrogate him, question him about the three questions. Who is your Lord? Who is your Prophet? What's your religion? But he will say, ha, I know nothing. They will say, what do you have to say about this man Muhammad? He will say, I only hear people talking about him, but I myself, I know nothing. A voice from the heavens will say, he has lied. So open for him a window of hell. Scorching hot wind will come into his grave. So don't be surprised if you pass by the grave of the kuffar and you see smoke coming from their graves. Scorching hot wind will come into his grave, and his grave will become small and squeezes him till his rib cage collide into each other. Then there will appear in front of him a man with ugly face and rough clothing, with the foulest of smell, the stinkest of smell. He then says to the deceased, tidings of evil to you. This is the day you were promised. The deceased will now say, who are you? I hope I'm not going too fast for the admin. The deceased will now say, who are you? For you are a face that represents evil. He will say, I am a manifestation of your evil deeds that you used to perpetrate in the dunya. I've always known you to be a person who was quick to disobey Allah and slow to obey Allah. May Allah recompense you with evil. Then when he is unable to answer the three questions, he will be struck in his head with a hammer, a mallet. If they should hit the tallest mountain with this hammer, it would crumble, disintegrate to become powder and dust. He then strikes the deceased, who will cry out. All will hear the deceased crying out in his grave, except al-Thaqalain. My brothers and sisters in Islam, the word al-Thaqalain means man and jinn. Al-Thaqalain means man and jinn. So the Prophet Muhammad used to say, please bring me the hadith, I am afraid that you will bury your dead. If I wasn't afraid that you won't bury your dead, I would make a dua to Allah for you to hear the dead people crying out in their graves while they are being punished in their graves. Please bring me the hadith. If I wasn't afraid that you'll stop burying your dead, I would make a dua to Allah for you to hear the people crying out in their graves as they are being punished in their graves. Then the door of hell will be opened for him to see his destiny. So he will say, he will cry out, "Oh Allah, delay the hour. Oh Allah, delay the hour. If I had not feared that you would not stop burying your deceased, I would have asked Allah to make you hear the punishment in the grave." Okay, shukran for the hadith. Yes, this is the hadith I learned from the lips of my sheikhs. And when a person is punished in the grave, everyone hear him crying out in the grave except al-Thaqalain. The word al-Thaqalain means man and jinn. And the next chapter, the difference between al-rooh and nafs. The person taking notes, the difference between ruh and nafs. Now, this hadith is a very, very long hadith. And the Sahaba who narrated the hadith is called Bara ibn Azib. And you might be wondering, how can a Sahaba remember such a long hadith? When you don't commit sins, your memory is good. But if you dabble in sins, your memory is weak. I'm sure all of you are shocked. How can the Sahaba remember such a long hadith? When you don't do sins, your memory becomes a photographic memory. But if you dabble in sins, your memory is weak. Many of you, you can't memorize the Quran, you can't memorize hadith, you can't memorize a khutbah, you can't memorize anything. The knowledge comes from one ears and go out through the other ears because of your sins. When Imam Shafi saw the leg of a woman because the breeze blew up her dress, he complained to his Shaykh about his bad memory. Waqi'. His Shaykh said, "Give up sins." Imam Shafi was a doctor, a poet, and a Shaykh, a scholar. So he put the advice of his Shaykh in 2 lines of poetry. شَكَوْتُ إِلَى وَقِي سُوء حِفْظِي فَأَرْشَدَنِي إِلَى تَرْكِ الْمَعَاصِي. I complained to my Shaykh about my bad memory. Waqi'. And he said, "Give up sins." وَقَالْ إِعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ الْإِنْفَضْ وَفَضْلَ اللَّهِ لَا يُؤْتَى لِعَاصِي. Then he said, "Know that knowledge is a barakah of Allah, one of Allah's fadl, His blessings, and Allah doesn't give His blessings to the sinners." So all of you are surprised, how can a Sahaba memorize such a long hadith? Because when you don't do sins, your memory is good. If you do haram, your memory becomes weak. And you can't retain the knowledge. You can't retain the knowledge. Okay, the person taking notes, the difference between ruh and nafs. We use these 2 words interchangeably, but there's a slight difference between them. There's a difference between heaven and paradise. There's a difference between the Arsh and the Kursi. There's a difference between a prophet and a messenger. There's a difference between Tawbah and Istighfar. There's a difference between destiny and predestination. And there's a difference between the Ruh and the Nafs. Nafs means the blood which is inside your body. That's one definition for Nafs. Nafs means the evil eye. So the Arabs will say, "Asabat fulan nafs." Nafs means the evil eye. The evil eye is a reality, not a fantasy. And the evil eye is a type of envy. So you might have a beautiful daughter, a son who is handsome, and you take the baby to somebody's house and the baby becomes sick. Because somebody put the evil eye on your baby. Maybe the person is barren, she can't give birth. So she put the evil eye on your baby. So the evil eye is a reality, not a fantasy. Nafs also means yourself. Allah said, فَصَلِّمُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ. Give yourselves. I mean the same person. Nafs means yourself. So Allah said, فَصَلِّمُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ. Surah 24, verse 61. It means give salam upon yourselves. Nafs means the same thing. So if I say nafs fulan, I means the same person. Fulan means a person. Nafs means your evil and corrupted desires. So if I say his nafs got the better of him, I mean the evil desires got the better of him. Because nafs means your evil and corrupted desires. And there is an ayah in the Quran where Allah mentioned the evil desires and the nafs. I'm sure it is Surah 79, وَالنَّازِيَاتِ غَرْقًا. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. Surah 79, verse 40. Surah 79, verse 40, Allah spoke about the nafs and the evil desires. Okay, the definition for ruh. I've given you many definitions for nafs. Let us focus on ruh. Ruh means the soul, nafs also means the soul. Ruh is used to refer to the soul which is inside the body. The Quran is called ruh. The Quran is the ruh. Because the Quran gives life to those who are dead, spiritually dead. The Quran is ruh because it gives you life. The angel Gabriel is also called ruh, the Holy Spirit. Ruh means the Holy Spirit when it is talking about the angel Gabriel. Allah said, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Wama adraka ma laylatul qadr. Then Allah said, تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. So in this surah, Allah refers to the angel Gabriel as what? The Ruh, the Holy Spirit. Ruh also means Iman. So Allah said in Surah 58 verse 22, أُولَٰئِكَ كَتَبَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ الْإِيمَانَ وَأَيَّدَهُمْ بِالرُّوحِ مِنْهُ. Surah 58 verse 22. So Ruh is called Iman. As for the hadith where the Prophet used Ruh to refer to the soul, the Prophet said, Inna al-rooh إِذَا قُبِدَ تَبِعَهُ al-Basar. When the ruh is taken from your body, the eyesight follows it. Bring me that hadith. When the ruh is snatched from your soul, the eyesight follows it. I want to see that hadith on the screen. Allah's Messenger entered upon Abu Salama, his corpse, whose eyes were wide open. This is a dead man, Abu Salama. And what happened? His eyes were wide open, the dead man. The Prophet closed the lids and then said, when the ruh, the soul, is taken out, the eyesight follows it, watches it ascends. Can you believe it? Your eyesight is watching the rooh as it ascends to the heavens. Found in Ahmed and Muslim. So here the Rasul used the word rooh to refer to the soul and said when the rooh is taken from your body, the eyesight watches the rooh. Now you know why when you see dead people, their eyes are wide open, as if to say they are staring at something. Of course they were staring at something. The Prophet told you in this hadith, when the ruh is taken, the eyesight follows it, watches it as it ascends to the heavens. So what's the difference between the ruh and the nafs? Allah Ta'ala said, Kullu nafsin dha'ikatul maut, every soul will have a taste of death. Whenever the soul is outside the body, it is called ruh. Inside the body, it's called nafs. That's the difference. When the soul is inside the body, it's nafs. Outside the body, it's ruh. And because of that, when it is outside the body, listen carefully. When it is outside the body, the eyesight watches the soul. The Prophet said, when the ruh is outside the body, going towards the heaven, the eyesight watches the soul. That's why the dead man, his eyes are wide open. All dead people, you see their eyes wide open because they are watching the soul going towards heaven. So it is called the ruh when it is outside the body. The next chapter, signs to tell you when a person has a good death. Signs to tell you when a person has a good death. I won't be taking a break. I'm finishing the notes because there is no dars tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. So don't, if you are tired, go to bed or drink Red Bull. I'm not stopping. The sisters in London, the sisters in the UK, they don't drink Red Bull and they keep telling me, okay, the sisters, they converted me to instead because they told me about taurine. Taurine, that there's taurine in Red Bull which is bad for the stomach. I'm yet to find one UK sister who drinks Red Bull. They gang up against Red Bull. Okay, drink coffee if you're tired. They told me about taurine which is in Red Bull which is bad for the stomach. I have in front of me certain signs that tell you when a person has a good death. I have in front of me approximately 14 signs. The first sign, he was able to recite the Shahada. The person taking notes, the first sign, he was able to recite the Shahada. I just got a PM from a sister who is in the USA who is a chemist. And she said taurine is good for the brain to keep you alert. Difference of opinion between the sisters of the UK and the USA. Taurine is good for the brain to keep you alert. What's the difference between the UK sisters and the USA sisters? The USA sisters, they can't drive stick. Manual car, they drive automatic. All the sisters in the UK, they drive manual. Now you know a difference. They can't drive manual in the USA. Stick shift. They drive automatic. In the UK, they all drive manual. Okay, the second, the Rasul said, bring me the hadith. Anybody who died and when he died he recited the Shahada, he'll be in paradise. If that was his last words, he'll go to paradise. Have you found the hadith? If your last words were La ilaha illallah, go to paradise. Okay, the next sign to tell you that you die well, it was a good death. You died on the battlefield. The best death is for you to die on the battlefield fighting the kuffar. Because when you die on the battlefield, all your sins are forgiven. From the first drop of your blood, all your sins are forgiven. You cross the bridge of Sirat with the speed of lightning. You are saved from the punishment of the grave. And when you go to paradise, you will be able to intercede for 70 members of your family. You are given 72 virgins in marriage. This hadith is in Tirmidhi. You'll be given 72 virgins in marriage. This hadith can be found in Tirmidhi. And your soul is kept in the bodies of green birds. You are given a crown of respect to wear. Your soul is kept in the bodies of green birds flying around in paradise. These green birds have their nest on chandeliers, and these chandeliers are hanging from the throne of Allah. So the other sign to tell you the person died well, it was a good death, is that the person died on the battlefield. Number 3, he died on the path seeking knowledge. So if you left your home to go to seek knowledge and you died in a plane crash, that is a good death. Because that journey was fi sabilillah. The 4th sign, he died from a plague, a pandemic. The 5th sign, he died from a stomach illness. Number 5, he died from stomach illness. Number 6, a woman who died in childbirth. Okay, shukran for the hadith to confirm if you die from a plague, you died a good death. A woman who died in childbirth died a shaheed, but it has to be a Muslim woman, not a kafir woman. Number 7, you died drowning in the river or the sea. Number 8, you die in the fire. If you die in fire, it's a good death. Number 9, you die because a building collapsed on top of you. Number 10, you die defending your property, your family, your honor, your religion, your life, one of the 6 sacred things. Number 10, you die protecting one of the 6 sacred things. The one who killed in defense of his property is a martyr. Okay, shukran for the hujjah. Or his family. Now, the 6 sacred things are your life, your wealth, your honor. Your life, your wealth, your honor. your akhl, your lineage, and the last, your deen. If you die fighting to protect one of these 6 sacred things, you die a shaheed. So if the kuffar invade your country to get rid of Islam and to impose democracy, and you fight to bring back Islam, you die a shaheed, because you died for the deen. Number 11, you died on Yawmul Jumu'ah. If you die on Yawmul Jumu'ah, it's a good death. The kuffar said they killed Anwar Awlaki on Yawmul Jumu'ah. Number 12, you die in Holy Mecca. Number 13, when you died, there was sweat on your forehead. If you died and we see sweat on your forehead, it is a good death. Number 14, you died doing something righteous. Abu Hanifa, how did he die? He died in sajda. He died in salah. So if you die doing something righteous, it is a good death. And if you die doing something haram, it's a bad death. Some men cheat on their wives, and they died between the legs of a woman committing zina from heart attack. The zina was so exciting, he died from heart attack. What a bad way to die. A'udhu billah. Didn't you know people die from heart attack committing zina? A'udhu billah. Now, the evidence to prove that to die doing something good is a good death. A man went to perform Hajj with the Prophet. He fell off his horse or his camel, broke his neck and died. The Prophet said, don't cover his head. Don't put perfume on his body. Bury him in the ihram, the 2 pieces of cloth, because this Sahaba will be resurrected on Judgment Day as a pilgrim. That is the evidence. Maybe you can find the hadith. Maybe you can find the hadith. Don't cover his head. Don't put perfume on his body. Bury him in the ihram, because he will be resurrected on Judgment Day as a pilgrim. It is worthy of mentioning that some Sahabas said, we must not part company with you in this world, because your soul will go to the paradise. The soul who is already in paradise will rush to the other souls who are coming in and say, how did you leave my relatives behind? For example, my wife and children, what is their state? Is that clear? The souls who are already in paradise will rush to the other souls who are coming into paradise, and they will say to them, how did you leave my relatives? What is the state of my relatives? Okay, you found the hadith. Okay, Shukran, Authentic 35, you have found the hadith. The Prophet said, don't cover his head, because he will be resurrected as a pilgrim on Judgment Day. So, a sign to tell you that you died a good death, you died doing something which is righteous. And if you died doing haram, then it is a bad death. Sometimes your soul tells you of goods and merchandise which is hidden while you are sleeping. The soul of a dead man tells the soul of the living about his merchandise. So the soul of the dead man, your dead grandmother, dead grandfather, can tell you, the soul of your dead father or grandfather can communicate with your soul, which is alive, to tell you about things that are hidden, merchandise that are hidden. Sometimes a woman sees her husband having an affair in a dream. This is the soul telling her about his crime. So sometimes the soul of a woman can tell her, because the soul roams around and the soul is a separate entity, the soul of a woman can tell her that her husband is having an affair. When I was living in the UK, a man was having an affair and he said his wife caught him. I said, how did she catch you? He told me she caught him in a dream, and she was even able to describe the person I was having the affair with. I was having an affair with somebody who was half black, half Indian. The person was Dogla, half black, half Indian. And my wife was able to describe the person in details. I had to admit to my wife that I was having an affair. So the soul of the woman was able to tell her that her husband was having an affair. And sometimes you might go to China or India and you see buildings and you see people and you became convinced, I've been to this place before. You experience deja vu. The reason why you were able to experience deja vu is because while you were sleeping in London or New York or Chicago or Sydney, Australia, or in the Caribbean or in Africa, your soul left your body while you were sleeping and went to India or China, while your body was in Africa or America, the Caribbean, in Europe. So when you go to India or China, 10 years later, you said, I've seen these people before, I've seen these buildings before. You experience deja vu. And the reason for deja vu is because your soul left your body and toured these places before you went there in person. And this is the explanation for deja vu. Only those who believe in reincarnation believe that the soul can return to the dunya. I repeat, only those who believe in reincarnation believe that the soul can return to the dunya. It is against our creed that the soul can return to the dunya, because Allah said in Surah 23, verse 100, وَمِنْ وَرَائِهِمْ Barzakh ilayhim yub'athun. And behind them is a Barzakh until the day of resurrection. And behind them there is a Barzakh until the day of resurrection. Therefore, the soul can never be returned to the dunya. This is our topic, the human soul. I'll stop and take 5 questions. Only 5 questions. I've exhausted you enough. I feel sorry for you, really. Never mind. Especially those who are taking notes. 5 questions. Yes, that is the evidence. وَمِنْ وَرَائِهِمْ بَرْزَخْ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. So we don't believe the soul can be returned to the dunya. This is our topic, the human soul. I will now pause and take 5 questions. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. A few days ago, I dreamt my grandfather reciting the Holy Quran in a very beautiful tone. What does it mean? He is dead. It means that your Lord is pleased with your grandfather, because the Quran is the ultimate guidance. The Rasul said, Ahsan hadith kitab Allah, the best speech is the book of Allah. Okay, I'm taking 4 more questions. When one person gives the other an evil eye, does this soul play a part? There is no doubt it plays a part, because the evil soul. Let me remind you that there are 3 types of soul. Nafs, lawama, the person taking notes, add this to your chapter. The 3 types of souls. The person taking notes, add to your chapter the 3 types of souls. Nafs, lawama, the rebuking soul. The soul that rebukes you and corrects you whenever you do haram. So when you do haram, the soul tells you to make tawbah. Nafs lawama. The second soul is nafs ammara, a soul which is prone to evil, and this person has lost his conscience. He doesn't know good from bad anymore, he has lost his conscience. Nafs ammara, the soul which is prone to evil, and this person has lost his conscience. He no longer knows good from bad anymore, and this person is destined to the hellfire. People like Bush and Blair, they have nafs ammara, a soul which is prone to evil. They have lost their conscience, they don't know good from bad anymore. People like Bush and Blair. The third soul is nafs mutma'inna, the peaceful soul. And this is the soul of the prophets and the Sahabas and the sincere believers. Nafs mutma'inna, the peaceful soul, the tranquil soul. And Allah Ta'ala said in Surah Nisa, verse 69, Man yati' al-Rasul, Man yati' Allah wa Rasul, fa'ulaika ma'alladhina an'am Allah alayhim min al-nabiyyin was-siddiqeen wa-shuhada was-salihin wa hasuna ulaika rafiqa. Surah 4, verse 69. Those who obey Allah and His Messenger, they shall be those who Allah has blessed. From among the prophets, the Siddiqeen, the sincere ones, the Shuhada, the martyrs, the righteous ones, the Salihin, and these are the most excellent of companions that you can ever have. وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. So these people that I have just made mention of in Surah 4, verse 69, they have nafs mutma'inna. Okay, shukran. And whosoever obeys Allah and His Messenger, then they will be in the company of those on whom Allah has bestowed His grace. Of the prophets, the Siddiqun, those who follow the prophets, who were first and foremost to believe in them, like Abu Bakr Siddiq, the martyrs, the Shuhada, and the righteous, and how excellent these companions are. وَحَسْنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. These are the people who have nafs mutma'inna, the peaceful soul, the tranquil soul. So there are 3 types of nafs, and whenever a person has nafs ammara, they can sleep at nights. The soul prone to evil, they have to drink whiskey, they have to take Prozac, they have to take crack, they have to smoke marijuana. They cannot have self-contentment because they have nafs ammara, a soul which is prone to evil. And the Prophet said the rich man is a man with self-contentment. What can I do if my wife's family want to bury her the Christian way? What you do, you make hijrah with your wife, and when she dies, you bury her secretly, the way Ali Ibn Abi Talib buried his wife Fatima secretly. Nobody knows where her grave is. He took the secret to his grave. That is the solution. You make hijrah with your wife, when she died, you bury her secretly, the way Ali buried Fatima secretly and took the secret to his grave. Is it appropriate for a Muslim sister to go to a Kafir university in the West? Also, what is some advice while there? She can go if she doesn't have to live on campus. She's allowed to go if she doesn't have to live on campus. All of you want female gynecologists to look after your wives. How will you have these female gynecologists if you make Western education haram on the sisters? And there is no such a thing called Western education. Education is education. Education is a universal thing. So she can go if she doesn't have to live on campus. One last question. So she needs to live close to the university. What happens to Barzakh after the questioning? Do the dead sleep? The dead sleep sometimes, and sometimes the dead doesn't sleep because of the ayah, Man ba'athana min marqadna, who wake us up after our sleep, which is Surah Yasin. Man ba'athana min marqadna, who wake us up after our sleep. So, because of Surah Yasin, there is no doubt that the dead sleep sometimes, and sometimes the dead doesn't sleep. Man ba'athana min marqadna, hada ma wa'ada rahman wa sadaqa al-mursalun. So because of this ayah in Surah Yasin, Man ba'athana min marqadna, who wake us up after our sleep, there is no doubt that the dead sleep sometimes, and sometimes the dead doesn't sleep. Sometimes the dead is punished, sometimes he is asleep. Now, Surah Yasin, verse 52 is an ayah that I would like you to bring to the screen. Man ba'athana min marqadna. They'll say, woe to us who has raised us up from our place of sleep. Yasin 52. Bring the ayah, Yasin 52. They will say, woe to us who has raised us up from our place of sleep. It will be said to them, this is what the most beneficent Allah has promised, and the messengers spoke the truth. Yes, so you asked, does the dead sleep? This is the answer to your question. Surah Yasin, verse 52. And I like when you ask a question and I'm able to use a Quranic verse to back up my statement. That was the last question. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.